Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Rex Afrasiabi on the show. Rex, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure being here.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm really excited for our conversation. And I know today we're going to talk a lot about obviously your story, where you've come from, where you're going in 2022 and beyond, as well as the mindset of leading entrepreneurs and successful people in general. I feel like this is something that's sometimes beaten to death on various podcasts and there's books. There's a book called Mindset, but it's such an important reminder. But before we jump into all of that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick for the audience?
Sure. How long do we have?
As long as you'd like. Hey, we got the whole hour,
No,
so don't take 45 minutes
um,
introducing yourself.
no, definitely not. Although I'm a lawyer, so don't judge me on that. I'm a lawyer, so I'm a director and founder of a law firm called MA Legal.
Okay.
We help our clients through business and in life. Our clients consist of leading entrepreneurs, stock exchange listed entities, even to startups. Also have interest in various other businesses. I've got a mortgage fund, property development company, management consulting, and other related businesses. I'm a lecturer for lawyers as part of their continuous professional development. I'm a co-host on two different business advisory shows. I'm a judge for various awards, like the Australian Real Estate Business Awards and the Young Achiever Awards of Australia. I sit on a few boards, including a charity. But at the heart of it all, I like to help people. And I feel like all the things that I do, the common trait in them all is I help people. And I feel like personally, for me, that's the most rewarding.
I love that. So everything that you do, the core focus is obviously helping people, serving people, making a positive impact on the world. And so you are involved in quite a few different things. So I'm really curious to see in terms of mindset and productivity. I love those topics. Like, how do you split up your week? And we could talk all about all that later. But, how do you shift hats from one business to another, from one task to the next, right? But where did this all begin? How did it start off? Did you always want to go to law school as a kid, or was this something that kind of happened after university? Or
Yeah, I started watching too many legal movies, or I suppose
yeah,
law films. Growing up, it always sounded very glamorous and what I wanted to do. I'm a Persian background. A lot of people from my background become doctors. I wanted to be a bit rebellion, so I became a lawyer. Went straight into a law degree from university, a law degree and an accounting degree. I thought the two help each other quite a lot. From there, worked at various larger firms, left them, started working at a boutique firm that represents three people in the BRW Rich 100 list, which was really good, high-end, one-on-one work with these entrepreneurs on everything they did, from personal life to ventures and the like. Somehow that turned into a job offer with a Friday night drinks, actually turned into a job offer with a fashion company, an international fashion company. I was younger, single at the time. Believe it or not, I had blonde hair and blue eyes as well. And it was an Audi TT convertible signing bonus, which at the time was a good car. So I joined them and I traveled the world, got to see business and from a different aspect, from manufacturing and the fashion and international trade is very different to other businesses, I suppose. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of international travel, a lot of local travel, China, Italy, New York, whatever you could think of, basically. It got to a point where, as much as it was fun and a lifestyle, and my friends were like, "Oh wow, you're going to New York Fashion Week, for example."
right.
It didn't satisfy my personal why. There wasn't enough in it for me, and that's when I realized my personal why has always been. I've got two actually. I got help people is the most rewarding, and I like to continue to learn. And I find the practice of law gives me both of them. Anyone that comes to a lawyer, whether they're going through something positive or negative, you help them through that process. And
Right.
that's really rewarding. And during the process, law is ever changing. So you need to continue to educate yourself and learn as well. So it was satisfying my wise. And from there, it just kind of grew.
Absolutely. And that's something that's funny. I've seen so many friends, even when I was in university and I was thinking, what do I want to do? I got a job in supply chain. I saw all these friends doing consulting and I'm like, man, that sounds so sexy. Like they're flying out every week. The company's paying for their food. They get per diem. But I did hear so many people say that after a while, it wears on you every single week, jumping on planes, catching the red eye flight. So while it does have an aspect of fun and excitement and adventure, at a certain point for many people, they reach that point where they're like, hey, I've had enough. Plus, you're not even enjoying the place. You're going there to work. You're at the client site most of the time, right? So
Exactly. And what people don't tell you sometimes, what people don't tell you is when you land back where you came from, like, you know, if you go into international, come back, you're jet lagged, and all the work you missed for that week, you got to catch up on. So you're kind of chasing your tail, and then by the time you've nearly caught your tail and up to date, you're off again.
You're off. I never knew about that part.
Yeah, that's the part that wears you down after a while.
Yeah, that's the not so glamorous part. It's kind of like social media in a way where people put the best foot forward. You see the smiling and the wins and the closed deals. You don't see that deal, that lawsuit that is coming our way, that deal that fell through, or that unhappy client, right? So I appreciate you sharing
or
that.
how long it takes to get a deal across the line.
Oh, yeah. Like it could have been a deal you're working on for 7-8 months, maybe over a year. And you act like, hey, we just got this deal under contract and we got it closed. I'm in real estate as well. So, well, I know that's one small sliver of all the things that you do, but I am on the residential real estate side. So I have got a deal that's been under contract for 5 or 6 months. It was a court-ordered sale, probate. We've been dealing with delays and, COVID. They're doing virtual hearings and all kinds of fun stuff. And I'm just like, well, geez, maybe I'll get paid on it before the end of the year's up. I'm not sure if it closes. We'll see. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket, as the saying goes, right? And I think that's the importance of diversifying what you're working on. But I love that you are working on a couple of different things, but the main focus obviously is to help people. So what's been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned in your career, or maybe something that you're working on improving currently? I'm always curious to see, like, what's one of the biggest lessons?
My current work, what I'm currently working on is a balanced lifestyle, trying to live that balanced lifestyle.
Ask, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I diarize my balanced lifestyle. So from the start of the week, my lifestyle is balanced and inbuilt into my schedule. So I've got workout time, I've got friends time, I've got time with my daughter, I pick her up from school 2 days a week. And that doesn't mean I'm not working. It means I'm time shifting. So what I do a lot of time shifting. I know I can only pick up my daughter at certain times, and that's during work hours. But I block that out and I make up for it afterwards. So instead of going to bed at 8 or relaxing at 8, I'm working at 8 p.m. But I'd had that relaxation time during the day with my daughter. So time shifting and scheduling my calendars work really well to live a balanced life for me, because I found that I had the greatest of intentions to do something, like go pick up my daughter. But if it wasn't in my schedule, my schedule gets filled out pretty quickly. So having it scheduled in there has really helped me live that balanced lifestyle. And it's helped me achieve more because I've got more clarity.
Absolutely. I love that term. I don't think I've really ever heard it. I think of there's some movie I'm thinking of where they're using time and they can go back and forth in time and change the different timelines, right? But time shifting, that's such a cool way of putting it, because all the things have to happen. And I'm like, hey, am I laggy over here? I know my Zoom's been weird. But all the things that have to happen, you just move it around, right? You make time to pick up your daughter from school, and you have certain things on your calendar, and you've got to move stuff around, because I feel like people always make up that thing of, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. My calendar's all booked. Well, you have to create the time, right? And that's what you're doing. You're creating the time here. You're shifting things later on in your calendar, and that's how you get it all done.
And doing it ahead of time, because if you try to create on the morning of something, saying, oh, I forgot about this, or I need to do this. If your calendar is filled with other things, you can't do it. But if you've scheduled it 2 weeks ahead or a month ahead, you'll do it, and you'll just shift other things around.
Yeah, and a perfect example is just cancellation policies for so many things, whether it's a yoga class or a massage. Usually within 24 hours ahead of time, it's free. If you cancel within that time, there's a penalty. You're going to pay 50% or something like that. So I feel like that's a great example you brought up. You can't just look at your calendar today and be like, well, let's move those 2 appointments, because that's kind of very short notice. I'd say at least 24 to 48 hours, or if not even earlier, 2 weeks ahead of time. That's plenty of time.
Mine's
that's the
normally
joke,
2 weeks ahead of time. So for the next 2 weeks, I've got my balanced lifestyle planned ahead, including workouts and the like. So it just helps me create that balance. And what I really like, what I can't stress enough, is delegation. You can't do everything yourself. And I think the hardest part of any business owner or entrepreneur is that skill, the skill to learn to delegate. And the ones that succeed the most have mastered that skill. And it's not an easy skill to master. I feel like sometimes it takes longer to delegate than to do it yourself, but
Right.
you're upskilling your people. And by upskilling them, next time it's going to take you less and less time. And by the time they're upskilled enough, you just tell them to do something and they know how to do it to your standard.
100%. I'm curious. I'd love to dive in a little bit on the delegation piece. I'm big on delegating, who, not how, reading all these different books on how to pass things off, find the right who so you don't have to figure out the how. How do you go about managing? Once you delegate something, how do you check in or make sure it was done right or track progress? Do you have any kind of framework that you can share?
Certainly. So it depends how big your organization gets. When I first started off, I'd oversee everything myself, and make sure nothing goes out that's not to my standard.
Yeah.
As your organizations get bigger, it's impossible to do that. So you implement the right managers in place that you know they've got the right skill set. So it has to be a tiered system. So everything has to be double checked. Human error does happen, and you should never beat someone up for doing it. But if there's a process and systems in place to have it double checked, it not doesn't eliminate it, it reduces it. And so my job is to delegate, and I delegate to the managers, and I speak to the managers, and they'll delegate down to their teams, and so on. And it goes up the hierarchy.
Perfect. And are you checking in daily, weekly? Do you do like a level 10 meeting, like from Traction or anything like that?
I do daily check-ins
Okay.
with the managers. I do weekly meetings with the entire team, and we have a monthly social event as well.
Cool. Perfect. I just like to see the different frequencies because I know everyone's got a little bit of differences in their cadence of how frequently they meet. But I think as long as you're having some sort of consistency, you can kind of keep your finger on the pulse in a way.
100%. And some of my team members have been for about 10 years. So it's
Right.
easy to check in with them on a daily basis. It's a very quick checkup. If it's a new manager that's in the role, I'll be checking up with him a couple of times a day and overseeing his work and making sure we're on the same page on how we deliver something.
Absolutely. So in terms of, I love the topic of mindset. I know I kind of mentioned it briefly at the beginning. So when you think of mindset, what comes to mind? Is it just like mental toughness? Is it David Goggins? Is there something that comes to mind? How would you define mindset?
My mindset is about balance and clarity and vision when
Okay.
when I speak about mindset. And I've been fortunate enough to work with some really successful entrepreneurs and leaders. And what I see common traits amongst them is they have a very clear vision, and a clear direction to get there. And I feel like others who don't succeed as well, their mindset, they just work hard. And if you
Yes.
work hard without a clear vision, you end up going around in circles, I suppose. An analogy I use with my clients is, tell me your destination and I'll get you there. If you're going to jump in a car, I need to know where exactly you want to go. And the more clarity you can give me where you want to go, I can help guide you there through the legal framework. But if you're not telling me exactly where you want to go, we're going to go around in circles. We may work hard, we may accomplish a lot, but we won't get to exactly where we want to go. And I find a lot of that is mindset and toughness to, you're going to go through challenges, but you're clear on your vision, so you still push through.
I love that. So if you're not clear when things get tough, you're just going to say, hey, what's the point? We don't even know where we're going. We might as well just quit or pivot
Or
or
you
try
get
something else.
sidetracked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sidetrack's a
you
good
get
word.
easily sidetracked. You go, oh, that was too hard. We can't do it that way. So let's try something else now. When the ones that really do succeed, they're so clear on their vision, nothing's going to get in their way.
Yes. I think of it as the horse with the blinders on, right? You've got to keep that on. I've heard that phrase. I love
Yes,
it. The horse that's racing
I
can't
do.
see anything left or right, doesn't know how the competition's doing. You're just focused on where it is that you're going to go and what's in front of you. What's that next obstacle that you need to sidestep or jump over or go through?
What I see a lot of people do is, and I tried that myself with the balanced lifestyle, is they live to their optimal. An analogy I've heard and I've used myself is professional athletes. Professional athletes are, they're working at the optimal levels in term. And how they do that is by they eat well, they sleep well, they don't train 8 hours a day. They balance their lifestyle. Whilst people in the professional world, not athletes, but lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, don't necessarily follow those same principles. And I feel like if they do, they can accomplish more because they've got more clarity in their life and they're achieving more by having that, like they're sleeping better, they're eating better, and that fuel and rest really helps.
Absolutely. You may have heard that quote, discipline equals freedom. As free as we love to be as entrepreneurs to do anything that we want, there is some value to having discipline, having a schedule that you follow, having, your morning routine, what you do before you go to bed, what you eat, for example. So how do you do that? I know you said you plan ahead about 2 weeks. How does your time look split between all the things that you're working on? Is there a rhyme or reason to it, or does it just depend on projects and deliverables and deadlines?
I think it depends on projects, deliverables, and deadlines, and my teams.
Okay.
As great as my teams are, teams not that they let you down. Their personal lives, they have personal lives as well. So if they've taken time off or they've gone away, it can really throw a spanner in the works. But if you've got that clear vision, you stay on course.
Perfect. Yeah, those are the variables, I guess. Different vacations and life does happen, right? We have our plan. This is what we stick to if everything goes perfectly. But of course, life happens, and people get sick, or they just got they got to go on leave. They have children, things like that. So life does happen. I love that. We've got to be realistic, and we've got to course correct as needed, right? Maybe plug in somebody else temporarily, or figure out a remote schedule, or whatever that looks like. So what's been one of the things is there something that pops up frequently that you had to put a process in place for, or has it all been kind of random?
Nothing sometimes goes to plan in my life. As much as I try to plan it, when you work in, for example, commercial litigation, you don't know when your client's going to get sued. They don't know when they're going to get sued. So if they've got an urgent injunction application hearing that's popped up for tomorrow, you got to do what you need to do to get it done. But I find personally, the more you deal with these things, you become stronger. The more adversity you have, and the more you realize how strong you are and how quickly you can get through these, the better it is. And if you're not stressed and you can go in there confidently, your client ooze that confidence from you. If I'm stressed in front of my clients and like, oh, I don't know what to do here, they're going to be freaking out themselves.
Yes, it's funny how that happens. I mean, I work with a lot of people who are buying and selling, or investors as well. And the same thing, it's just the way that you portray your confidence. You may be nervous. You may be like, I don't know how this deal is going to go. But if you can at least deliver it with confidence and certainty that even if you don't know, you're going to figure it out, that puts them at ease. It's almost like animals can sense fear. I feel like people have a very good sense of that as well. If you don't know what you're talking about, and you're confused, that's not going to look good. Your client's going to say, I don't know about this guy. He doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing, right?
And the more adversity you go through, the stronger you become. You realize it's not faking it. It's genuine. You'll get through this. You'll deliver a great result.
Absolutely. And the growth happens during the adversity and through the struggle, right? When we do things that are hard, Same thing at the gym. You can't just get magically in shape by putting that little belt on the commercials that gives you a six-pack, right? You got to go do the work.
Yeah, exactly. I've tried the belt. It doesn't work, unfortunately.
So do you do any types of training, or I'm sure you coach with your team or talk about this at the socials and everything that you hold, but in terms of mindset, in terms of sharpening the axe or the saw, how do you keep your team kind of developing and pushing forward and staying focused and clear?
Yeah, so I do two different, my personal training, I do boxing. So boxing and racing. I call it my active meditation. I try to have one professional boxing fight a year to keep me kind of sharp. I watched too many Rocky movies growing up.
You had to get
I'm
in
not
the
sure
ring.
if you can see, but I've got a black eye slightly on this side from sparring a few days ago. And that keeps me sharp. It keeps me, I call it my active meditation. When I'm in a boxing ring or going around a racetrack in a motorcycle or a car, I block out the world. I live in that zone. And whilst training for that, if you're doing an hour with 400 burpees in that 1 hour and sparring and stuff like that, you realize how much you can push your body. And I implement that with my teams as well. So with my training for my teams, we do a lot of on education with them and including stuff about adversities we've gone through the week. So once a week, Wednesdays, 2 p.m., we all catch up as a team, and one of the lawyers will do a presentation on a legal topic that everyone gets up educated on, so they can learn something. And then we talk about adversities and the like as well.
Perfect. So it's almost like you share what's difficult, and then maybe you tackle it together on, hey, how are we going to get through this? Let's hear some ideas.
Yeah. And I think it just helps grow the team and more buy-in from the team members.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I've heard is whenever you want someone to really do something, let them propose the solution, because that way you're not telling them what to do where they may feel like, I don't want to listen to what Rex says, I don't know if Rex knows what he's talking about today. Like, I think this idea is better versus if they come up with the ideas, they have more buy-in. They're more sold on the vision because they like the idea. Obviously, they're a little biased because they helped generate it, right?
Exactly. So that's what happens with our team meetings. Everyone's got input into what we do.
Yes.
Into our growth, into our strategies and stuff. So with that input, that's their buy-in. And, Absolutely. Any organization is only as good as their people. Your culture is so critical, especially for any service-based industry. A good culture, all your clients talk greatly, not just about yourself, but about your team. And yes. That, I think, culture comes from the top down and then circulates and goes back up.
Absolutely. So how is your culture? How do you kind of teach that? Or do you have core values on the wall? Do you have training on it? Do you bring up different core values at meetings? I'd love to hear that, because I hear core values and culture is very important, but a lot of times it's something that people are like, yeah, we're going to get to it, and they never do.
We have core values. Our core values is to help. That's our, it's very simple, to help. Okay. And, with the culture, it's about find the right people that fit within your team, not necessarily the right people with a skill. I feel like skill sets can be taught.
Yes.
If they've got the right mindset and the right person for the fit in the team. So with us, most of our team members are friends socially outside the office. In terms of the office and the culture, everyone's got that buy-in because they're part of coming up with the strategies. Those team meetings helps build that.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. And I think the idea of just having a culture where people want to be friends outside the office, that's a big deal. Because I throw all of the corporate stuff under one bucket because I just had an experience at a couple of different places, and then I left early on in my career to do my own thing. But I just felt like, they talk about culture and missions and core values, but you never feel it. And then there weren't very many people that I actually wanted to hang out with outside of the office, right? I'm like, we're totally different. You've got your life, I've got mine. We're just going to talk at the office, and I'm never going to see you outside of it, right? So If you can have an environment where people love to hang out, they go make plans together, that's a good like litmus test, or I guess rule of thumb for having the right culture, having the people who get along with each other and think like-minded.
Yeah, and you do that by having these social events, and you do it by leading by example. Everyone in my office knows that when it comes to something going wrong, I'm a cleaner. I'll jump in and clean it up or do my best. There's no job in my office I won't do, from photocopying to answering phones to anything. It's not a hierarchy. We have a hierarchy because of the way we operate, but I feel like everyone, and you lead by example to say, no, you're not better than anyone else. We're all on equal stepping here. And if you see someone that needs help, regardless of what it is, you do it.
100%. I don't know if you've ever seen that one meme or graphic on floating around on Instagram, but I think there's one that says like a boss and he's yelling at everyone to pull the rope. And then there's someone else that says leader and he's at the front pulling the rope with his people. That's how I think it needs to be, right? Instead of just yelling 100%. And telling people to do it, you got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and actually do the work, regardless of what it is or whose job it is.
And if your team members want to help you, want to be part of your organization with you, that's very different to them wanting to be there for a paycheck. Yes. I never want someone to be there for a paycheck.
Right. And that's tough too, because if people just want the paycheck and they're not bought into the mission or the vision, they're going to do the bare minimum. They're going to maybe do the job, right? Or maybe start slacking if they just don't find it interesting at all. But if they're truly bought in, I just had this conversation earlier today, actually. If they're truly bought in, and sure, money, you got to take the money part off the table. They have to be able to support themselves and feed their families. But once that's taken care of, I mean, the money doesn't really make a huge impact at a certain level for many people on the team, right? If they have the same vision and goals, that's what lights them up. They wake up excited to do whatever it is that they're going to
And they
do.
want to come to work.
Yes, instead of just saying, okay, I get paid tomorrow and then I'm gone this weekend, right? I can't wait for
Yeah.
the weekend, right? Thank God it's Friday type thing.
To me, that's the boss's or the business owner or the manager's responsibility. It's,
Yes.
they haven't done the right thing. And sometimes what I see a lot of companies do, especially in the real estate field, they get that real good estate agent who's a great at writing numbers, does phenomenal numbers, but doesn't fit the culture.
Right.
And because of that, it stems this bad culture within a firm or a company, and then the the business owners don't make a decision of firing him because he's a good fee earner. I've done it myself. Culture should come first. If culture comes first, if you have 10 great people that do great numbers, it's better not having two, because you're less reliant on those two key employees. And if you have just those two big employees that is ruining your culture, I always tell my clients, you need to get rid of them. And a lot of times they don't, or they do it too late, and then they go back to, we should have done that a long time ago.
Yeah, I love that advice that really culture should be the main thing to measure people against, because there's that saying, one bad apple ruins the bunch. It's true. It can be a toxic trait if you have that. Even if they're a top producer, high performer, they're crushing the numbers. You keep them around too long, they're going to start to say negative things to the other salespeople or the other members of the team, maybe kill some people's excitement to come to work. The toxic work environment in general is something that I think causes a lot of people to quit or to find something else, right? Even a toxic relationship with the manager. I think that, I don't remember which statistic or where I saw it, but in a lot of cases, that's what causes people to quit, because they just have some kind of toxic environment at work where they don't want to go to work. They feel uncomfortable at work. They're just there for the paycheck at that point.
And that's not a sustainable business.
Absolutely
or a
not.
sustainable enterprise. Because if you're reliant on one person and it's going to ruin the culture of the rest of your people, if that person leaves you, what are you left with?
Right.
People don't sometimes realize that you're better off having a culture that builds itself. So you're not reliant on one customer or one client or one team member.
Mm-hmm. So that's a very good point as well, because a lot of times people get that big client, they land that big deal that makes up 70 or 80% of their income and their revenue. And what happens if that person goes somewhere else, or they just decide, hey, we can just handle this in-house or whatever, hire somebody to take over what you're doing for them. At that point, you're out of luck, because you've hired based on those numbers. That person is gone, and now your revenue gets cut by 60% or 70%. I'm sure it happens all the time.
Happens all the time. And I feel like it's the way you treat the person too. So I treat everyone, I generally do. Anyone that comes a client of mine is treated equally. And they know that, and they respect me for that. Because I represent, some people that are in the BRW Rich 100 list to listed stock exchanges, entities, and they want special treatment. I tell them, you're not going to get it from me. Just
Right.
not going to happen. I'll give you what I give everyone else. Everyone's treated equally. Some people keep, go turn their back up. But if you're really good at what you do, you can get away with anything.
Absolutely.
And if you believe in yourself, and they know, I've said to them, look, this is how I work. If you don't like it, I respect it. No hard feelings. I'll help transition to any other firm you want. There's not an issue. They never leave me.
That's awesome. So you know what value you're able to provide, and you stick to your guns. And it's funny. It's like the law of attraction. I always talk about this example, how when you're single and you're awkward in college or high school and you're trying to hit on girls and you're just repelling everybody, but all of a sudden you've got a girlfriend and everyone wants to come talk to you because you're comfortable, you're confident, right? You know what you bring to the table. And
Exactly.
that's the example that makes me laugh the most, because it's so true. It's really, you can never get girls when you're single, but all of a sudden you're dating someone in college, and then all of these people want to be your friend. It's very weird. But same thing with
The same
clients.
applies to all businesses, all enterprises.
You have that attraction where people are like, gosh, there's all these people buzzing about, Rex and the business, and they're all talking about how amazing it is working with him. He gives everyone the equal treatment. I want to go work with Rex, not with this other person who prioritizes those bigger dollar clients, because that's also short-sighted. You never know when that client who's a small dollar client now becomes the big dollar client.
And some of mine with help from startups to one of them is a BRW fastest growing it's been for the last few years. And when I first met him, he was just a little startup.
Absolutely. I hear it all the time in real estate. Journey. Yeah, the journey is amazing just being there, because I think a lot of times people become enamored with the numbers right now. You know, they want to make the sale now. They want to close the deal now. So they see the big client versus the little old client who just got started versus playing the long game. And for example, in real estate, I've seen people say, like, how do you get to that luxury market? How do you work with luxury clients? And one of the responses on this thread I saw in a Facebook group said, you start by selling them the $200,000 house. Then they sell that, they move to the $500,000 house. 5 years from now, they're moving into that, $2 million house, and they're renting out another property, right? So it really snowballs from there. And that's how you can grow with your clients. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Yeah. And look, people, in my experience anyway, and I'm sure you might agree with me, they'll use it for one of three factors. They like you, and they'll get along with you. They've been referred to by their trusted friend or advisor, or you're known as an industry leader in that field or area. And if you tick all three boxes, you should be so confident in yourself. And if you don't tick one of the boxes, it's something you can improve on.
Absolutely. I love that. Because I've heard, they work with you if they know, like, or trust you. But obviously referrals is a big part of it, as well as being known as the industry leader. So if you don't take all the boxes, you know what you need to work on. If you do, then, continuous improvement. I know you said learning is one of those things that you love to do. And so I'm sure it's a never-ending journey. It's not like, okay, I ticked all the boxes, I'm good.
And that's the beauty of what I practice law. So law is always evolving and changing. And it contributes to my other businesses and other things I do as well.
Absolutely. I did see a recent Instagram post of yours where you were talking about something that it wasn't quite law yet. It was just proposed, and all these things have to happen to get there, right? So it's very helpful. So I guess that keeps you on your toes. Yeah,
it does. So my Instagram and my social medias, I try to educate my followers, I suppose. I've been fortunate enough to get a following of some description. So yeah, I want to give back as much as I can.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the best way to get people to know, like, trust you, and show that you're an expert leader, because you're teaching people. And after they get so much value for free, they're going to reach out, or maybe when their friend refers you and you're like, well, I've already been listening to Rex's content, plus this friend also worked with Rex. Okay, that's two of the three boxes. Now the third one, they get to know and like you, and you're good.
You're good. And I think that social media should be used by most people. It's like that social proof these days. It's a form of marketing, yes, but it's also giving that social proof. And if you're giving back, it's very easy to give back on social media. Anyone can log in, anyone can add content, and I think it's good for all professionals to give back to the community.
I agree. And I just think the way the world's going to, the social media platform, it's more like your digital resume and footprint.
Yeah.
And if people don't have a presence on there, if they're like, well, I'm not on any of these platforms, they're just on like LinkedIn or maybe Facebook or something, there's not really a whole lot to go on other than maybe Google reviews if they have a business set up in Google My Business. So a lot of times I feel the social proof, just seeing consistency. How many times have you showed up? How many videos are out there? Oh, you've been doing this since 5 years ago, right? I think I shared my podcast with someone and they were listening to an episode and he texted me like, oh, wow, you've been doing this for a long time. Like, I haven't just started a podcast and this is episode 3. Like I'm in the 300s right now. So that kind of has that perceived expert status, right? Like you're actually committed to the long-term process.
And you're giving back, you're helping.
Yes. It goes back to helping. I think that's the core thing. You've got to have that intention. If you're just doing it for the money or the paycheck or the quick deal, it's not going to be sustainable. Maybe you get the quick sale, but maybe you don't get any referrals, right? Because they felt like a number in your system.
And then where does that stop? Mine's easy, so it's helping. So you're always helping. It's most rewarding. But if it's money, at what level, what dollar amount does it stop? And what happens when you get there? How do you keep motivating yourself? How many cars, boats, houses can you have? I've
never seen anyone cry in a Ferrari, right? As the saying goes.
I've seen business owners who are very successful with Ferraris who just they've lost the drive. They don't have that mojo where they did at the start. They were so hungry and driven at the start, and they've lost it now because they've got to where they wanted to. And now
they've lost their purpose.
Yeah, they've lost that. They don't have that vision anymore. It's about helping them find what actually drives you, because it's never the Ferrari. that physically drives you, but it's never, getting that's just a status symbol for something else. So you need to
Right.
find the core of it. And I've had that discussion and sit downs with multiple clients who have done really well and just kind of lost that extra thing that they had that got them there.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. And just figuring out, I think that's a powerful why of helping people, because that's like another never ending continuous improvement. Like the journey never ends. Like you could help the person on the street corner, the person who needs your help right now with a legal matter, someone who comes to the social who's struggling with something in life. Like it never really ends. And I think that's how people get the most fulfillment, because I guess I'm kind of at that level right now where, I could take care of myself. I could pay my bills. I can do some fun stuff, buy a couple of toys, but it doesn't feel good. Like you said, for your people, you've had the conversations, another Ferrari, another yacht, another jet ski. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
How can you change someone's life? How can you put a smile on their face? Maybe buy the person behind you coffee in line at Starbucks or something, right?
And that is so rewarding, that little, and once you tap into it and see how rewarding it is, it's, I love what I do because it really does. It feels great when, I go through a big journey with my clients, whether they're doing a major acquisition or going for a divorce even, or, whatever they're doing, or going for a messy litigation, they're getting sued. It's a big journey of ups and downs. And when you get to the end of it, that satisfaction and that gratitude they have for the helping them through the journey, it's nothing more rewarding.
Absolutely. And the thing too is when you're making more value and impact, you're obviously going to make more income as well, because I've seen that thing that income is determined by the amount of impact on the world. If you're not making enough money, you're not making enough positive impact in the lives of others in most cases. And maybe Mother Teresa is an exception where she like gave it all away or whatever. Yeah. But I did hear somewhere that Mother Teresa was actually wealthy, but kind of gave it all away. Like she still made a lot of money or something. I don't know the numbers behind it, but obviously the more impact you're making, the more value, the more clients, the more referrals you're going to be getting. And if you screw someone over, or you try to pull a fast one on them, or just try to make a quick buck, they're going to tell people about that experience too. And maybe the two would-be referrals no longer come to you, right?
Exactly. And you can, what you get to a point sometimes where I've been fortunate enough to do it on a small scale. I'm trying to get bigger scales where, you work with certain large organizations, and I sit on board of directors for charities as well. And I've been able to combine the two on a number of occasions where the big organizations become the major corporate sponsor for the charity. And you see that go through and everyone's happy. And it's like, you sit back and you don't want to take credit for it, but you feel so much better that you put this together and it works so well.
Yes, I found that to be very fun lately too. And I've kind of almost introduced myself on podcasts lately as a connector, not just a real estate agent, not a real estate investor, but more of like a connector, because someone has a need, you can help find the solution, you bridge the gap, and you're adding value there. You don't have to even provide the service. It's almost like even like affiliate marketing. You didn't create the software, you didn't sell the service. You're just the middleman explaining the value and being like, hey, this is the solution for that problem that you told me about. Here it is. And then you can get either a referral fee or you can monetize it somehow. But again, that's not the purpose or intention. The intention is to help people, and the money, the income is a byproduct of that. That's what I've seen for myself lately.
Yeah. And if you don't look for the money, it always comes.
That's the same thing, right? Like the law of attraction thing we talked about earlier. When you're trying to look for the person you're interested in at the bar, they're not interested in you. But when you're just there having fun, being yourself with your friends, it's like you attract the opportunities to your life.
Yeah. It's amazing how it works.
It really is. It really is. So what are some of the things that you're working towards with all of the things that you have going on? Do you have any 5-10 year goals that are front and center of your mind, or are you kind of just enjoying the journey? You're satisfied with, because I know we always want to grow, but at some point like we talked about, when is enough? Like how much bigger do you want to keep going? Right. I'm just curious to hear
I've always
thoughts.
got new projects that I've been not conned into, but like I'm very close to my clients, and they go, "This is my project. Do you want to be involved?" And I look at it, and a lot of the projects I do get into, and I pay my way. I pay my fair share of it. I contribute as much as I can to it, etc. So there's always a few projects happening. There's a couple of new projects for next year as well, including another show that we're launching, hopefully in January next year, called Making an Entrepreneur. Be like a business advisor show. We've got some leading entrepreneurs that have done phenomenal. A few of them are already in the 30, Forbes 30 under 30. So they're under 30 years old. They've They've made multi-millions. So they're going to be our guests. We've got a large Bitcoin exchange. They'll be the sponsor of the show. There'll be 12 episodes followed by a 2-day summit. That'll happen the first half of next year, which will be kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm personally looking forward to sitting down with these entrepreneurs and going through their journeys as well. I take a lot away from that myself, and I learn a lot when I'm interacting from that level. So that's the first half of next year, and I think we're doing a couple of other businesses that I'm going to be jumping into as well, with various people. So, but I want to try and maintain my balanced lifestyle. My goals of doing this have kind of changed since I've had a child. Since having a child, my goals is to live a balanced lifestyle. I still want to help. I still want to contribute. It's not about numbers or growth anymore for me. It's about giving back as much as I can and having a balanced lifestyle as much as I can.
That's powerful. And I know a lot of times priorities change, obviously, I've heard people say once they have the exit, they could start all over, but they're in a different stage of life, right? They don't want to sleep under their desk and work till 4 a.m. because they've got soccer practice that they'd rather go to support, their children or their family. And so priorities change as you go through your journey. But I think it's also important. I mean, because I'm 31, I'm about to get married this next year.
Congratulations.
No children. Thank you. So I'm early on in the journey, but in the same way, I feel like even though I could work till 3 a.m. and all this stuff, I love that idea of balance and just taking care of everything, right? Mental health, physical health, eating well, sleeping enough. Because so many people sacrifice one area and all the other areas suffer, right? You can't operate on 2 hours of sleep a night unless you're a robot. And so I think that the balance piece is very, very important.
The professional athlete, which I mentioned earlier, look at a professional
Great
athlete.
Example.
They do not live the lifestyles of people in office. They don't work till 3 a.m. They don't do that, and they work at their optimal. Why can't everyone adopt those same living lifestyles?
100%.
They work on their mindsets, they work on their body, they work on their diet, and they work on their trait. For them, it's sports. For others, it's not.
100%. I signed up at a sports recovery place recently, and they've got leg compression sleeves and cryotherapy and hot tub and cold tub. It's an amazing place. And I was talking to one of the therapists out there, and he mentioned, a lot of people don't come to this because they don't associate themselves as athletes. They assume this is for like Olympic athletes or, collegiate athletes who play professional basketball or football or whatever it is. But the thing is, we have to change that mindset and kind of treat ourselves as that professional athlete. Give ourselves the very best food, get enough sleep, actually take care of our body, work out the kinks in our back with massages and things like that. That way, when you sit in that meeting and you're talking to your team, you can operate at your optimal level instead of like, gosh, I'm tired, my neck hurts,
Exactly.
I feel like
I'm
clarity from walking up the stairs.
When you eat well, sleep well, and you're looking after yourself, you've got that clarity. And if you're working on your trait, whatever your profession is, I think a part of it should be spent upskilling yourself. That self-education. 100%. Self-education to me is the best education. So that upskilling in any profession should be done. So, using a professional athlete, they'll practice. If you're a basketball player, they'll practice their jump shots. Yeah. But if most lawyers don't want to, once they finish law school, they don't really want to go read cases again. Why? It's like saying the professional basketball player after university shouldn't go play. If they're playing in the NBA, they shouldn't practice. They should always practice. I think the same should apply for every profession. They should continue to upskill themselves, eat well, sleep well, and try to live that balanced lifestyle.
100%. Speaking of upskilling, how do you incorporate that into your schedule? What does that look like? Do you have a personal coach, a business coach, or do you go to a couple of conferences a year? Do you have any goals around that for upskilling?
Yeah, I do a lot of conferences for legal education. I'm actually a lecturer for them as well myself. So I lecture to other lawyers as well. I've been fortunate enough to be asked to do that. It's something I really enjoy. It's just giving back. It's really giving back and helping the legal fraternity, the legal community. I get reached out from my social media from lots of different lawyers, even some partners of firms, and every time anyone reaches out to me, I do engage. I try to do my bit to give back as much as I can.
I love that. And I mean, you learn a lot through teaching as well. So the more you give back, the more you ingrain those thoughts into your mind. And maybe you even come up with a new perspective. If they ask a question that you never really thought of, you're like, Huh, that's a really good question. Like, I had never looked at it from that lens, right?
Exactly, exactly. Teaching is one of the best skills to have because, as you said, you upskill, you create extra confidence in yourself because you're if you can teach others in your same not for lawyers, I'm teaching other lawyers, so the questions they're going to ask me, I need to be prepared for, and it's just
Right.
helps you cement your if you're to be good, you have to do that extra self learning.
Absolutely. And then even those athletes, I think I heard somebody watched Kobe Bryant practicing before, and it wasn't anything sexy. It wasn't 360 dunks or like, dunks from the free throw line. He was practicing layups and free throws and all the basic shots that you're like, what, really? You're practicing that? You're an incredible athlete. You can do so much more, and you're practicing that. And he's like, yeah, the basics. That's why I do so well, because I practice that until I know it, like the back of my hand type thing. So that's the layups that we all have to do in our business. It seems like easy, minuscule. Maybe you already learned it in law school. Why would you revisit it? But just continuing to hammer those points home keeps you sharp.
It does. And hammering it to your team members as well
Yeah.
keeps your team members sharp and sets up little systems and procedures within your any organization, even the basics on how to answer a phone. You have that consistency throughout your office that helps in so many ways, from culture to customer satisfaction. Those basics are overlooked so often.
Yeah, it's a never ending journey. I think high performers, we get frustrated. I mean, I'm classified. I like to think of myself as a high performer. I hope
You
I
are.
am. I appreciate it. But a lot of high performers, they're never satisfied. I've seen one guy I follow. He has this gym that he operates in. It says proud but never satisfied. Like, you're happy with what you've done, but you're not satisfied because you know you can do more. And so it's almost like this. Every day you're trying to get further and better and do more, and it's a little frustrating because you feel like you should be further. You always do, but we tend to overlook all the things that we have accomplished, right? If you look behind, like, oh wow, we've actually done quite a bit. We've got all these different businesses going on and income streams and happy clients, but we're focused on that next goal so heavily that we can't fully appreciate what we have gotten to. So I think that's important as well, just to sit back and actually appreciate the progress that we've made.
Yeah, but the real go-getters that I see some of my clients, the likes of they get the Ferraris or whatever, and they don't know where to go forward. What I've helped with
Right.
them is I've helped create rivalries in their brains. So, and that's helped them. So they've got to
Yeah.
this top level, and they've just, kind of just lost their mojo, their drive. And what we've sat down and done with some of those people is because they're very competitive. So if you create rivalry in their brain, saying, look at this person, you need to be as good as them. Or every time you do anything, know that they're going to be doing it harder. And that helps create this extra drive within them to get
Yeah.
them to where they used to be.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I've used it myself from time to time. If I'm feeling down, I'll try to create a rivalry in my own head. I've done it before with people that don't exist, just to create that. And I actually got it from Michael Jordan from watching The Last Dance.
Oh
He used to
yeah.
do it with every time if you watch The Last Dance, he did it with other basketball players from the other team, where no one, I think it was Danny Ainge he did it with, or one of the white guys from Utah. And there was no rivalry there, but he created in his head and forced him to push him to this next level.
I love that idea. That's a really good series. I mean, I'm not even a big sports person. I never really watch any of the big games, but I can appreciate the skills, the practice, and just the work ethic. Seeing these people working, like, why would they push harder? They're just at practice, right? Why not play 70% and they're going all out?
Yeah,
That helps us to realize that, hey, we need to actually play full out as well in our day to day. We can't just coast and then try to show up for the client when you're sitting there in front of the judge, right? You got to be
exactly.
at the top
Exactly.
of your level instead of like, I was joking with a friend who's actually going through law school right now about it, and he was saying he had to do a practice case in front of a judge, and it was pretty much like real scenario but different names, and he was all stressed out, and like luckily he won the case or whatever, his trial case that he did. But I think that was a funny example of how he felt the stress and everything as if it were real, because that's what it's going to be like, right? You can't just practice 50% and then show up and hope to do well. You got to show up fully every time.
Okay. Couldn't agree more.
I love it. So Rex, we've talked about so many amazing things on this conversation. I know you got a long, busy day ahead of you. Is there anything that we missed or a question that I should have asked Feel free to add anything else that you'd like to share with the audience at this time.
Not at all. You've covered everything. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I always love connecting with entrepreneurs and just seeing how they do things a little bit differently and they manage their lives and their schedules. So I know my audience is probably like, okay, we've heard a lot of different people's morning routines and how they plan. But I think if you get one nugget from the show for everyone listening, just one nugget that you apply, like boom, that's worth it. If you get anything else in that, it's cherry on top, right? So
Exactly.
where can our audience go to connect with you, to learn more about you and possibly work with you?
Yeah, certainly. So my website is malegal.com.au, and my social media is just my name on LinkedIn, and Rex Afrasiabi underscore lawyer on Instagram.
Awesome. I will link all that up in the show notes. So anyone listening, feel free to head over there if you want to click on this and not have to like remember or rewind it back.
It's a tough one to spell as well.
Yes, that's definitely more of a unique last name than I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever met an Rex Afrasiabi. I'm thinking of the hyphen that you told me about earlier to pronounce it.
It makes it so much easier.
I love it. So Persian, you said, right?
I am, yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, Rex. I hope we stay connected. I connected with you on LinkedIn. I think you connected with me. I accepted it.
Thank you.
So we'll stay in touch.
Definitely. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for having me on.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being a listener to the show and for checking out my message. If you've been here for a while, I'm especially grateful for you. But if you're new here, thank you once again for being a listener. Just wanted to let you know, I help people buy, sell, or rent real estate across the nation in the US. I probably could even help you across the world, but it just gets a little more difficult with time zones and setting up times to chat. If you have any questions at all, shoot me a DM on Instagram. My handle is Chris Bello _, or you can also go to my website, chrisbello.com/real estate. Again, that is chrisbello.com/real estate. Happy to help any way that I can. And thank you once again for being a listener.